Irie. I certainly hope there is enough space on the train for me. I'm Liam, he's Rob, and welcome to the second part of our Christmas season of Holiday Podcast as we take a look back at John Landis's 1983 Christmas classic Trading Places, one of those rare Christmas movies whose reputation appears to grow with each passing year. Is it Christmas adjacent? Could you watch it in April? Does it belong amongst the finest of festive favourites? Now, I don't know about you, Rob, but when it comes to Trading Places as a Christmas movie, or otherwise for that matter, I was something of a late bloomer when it came to this movie. I didn't love it as a kid. I watched it when I was younger, but I was always a bit like, whatever, other than the whole Jamie Lee Curtis thing, of course. But I rewatched it maybe like 10 years ago, and I was like, fuck, this film's really good. Then I rewatched it again a couple of years ago, maybe for the first time as a Christmas movie, and loved it. And obviously watching it again for the podcast, I'm like, man, this film's really fucking good.
It's a good film. I'm same as you, mind. It's not really any aside from Jamie Lee Curtis, and I did write down how are we going to get cancelled on this podcast talking about blackface and Jamie Lee Curtis's boobs, and you've already brought up both before we even moved on.
That's what this is for a lot of people when they think of this movie. They think of Dan Aykroyd's blackface, and they think of Jamie Lee Curtis's, fantastic wreck. I think it's fair enough.
Magnificent. But going back, it's the kind of story that won't interest a kid.
You mean betting on orange futures? Yeah. It's a tough sell for kids.
Yes, betting on orange futures. So again, you don't get the nuances when you're little and stuff. So as you watch it, I enjoyed it more on this rewatch than I ever have before. It's such a great watch. But we have to get into it now. Before we go into anything else, how the fuck did they make money? I'm sorry.
It's tricky. And that is, again, one of the great reasons why when you're watching this as you're young, right, it's really easy to appreciate it as an adult where they don't go, because this is quite like almost a bit of a zany comedy. It's like a bit of an oddball. It's a bit of a throwback, to like kind of 50s, 60s kind of comedies.
Yeah.
And you expect there to be like a big, kind of showdown at the end of the film. And instead, it's all on the trading room floor, an 80s trading room floor, which is a fantastic kind of visual representation of capitalism in the 80s in America, where it's just absolute bananas. But if you want an explanation, because even now I was watching it, I was like, some of this is going over my head. So they give the Duke brothers bad info based on forged government reports on orange crops. See, already I'm like, this is supposed to be a comedy. It's insane. So the fake report says the crop was bad, so the OJ price will theoretically rise. So that drives up the price of orange futures. The price goes up even further as everyone's buying based on the brothers' apparently insider information. So everyone sees the brothers buying, so then everyone else jumps on, raising the price. So they've already bought stock in the orange juice because the Winthorpe and Valentine. They've got the real insider information. Yeah. So he shouts, it's so easy to miss it. He shouts out, sell 30 April at 142. And what he's basically saying is, I'll sell the stock I have in my hands 142 based on a price on the 30th of April. So months in advance. So that's the idea of trading on future prices.
So he bought stock before he even went in there. That was the point.
Yeah. He's already bought. But now, so he then sells it at a higher price than what he bought it for, because he's saying, I'll sell it for 142 because everyone thinks the price is going up. They're like, I'll buy it 142 because they think the crop report's going to be bad, so OJ price will keep going higher. So on the 30th April, they'll be able to trade in their future contracts for even more money because they'll be worth more than 142. So obviously then you get the actual reveal of the report, the TV report, with the Secretary of Agriculture who's on TV reporting on, OJ crop. I'm not sure if that ever happened, but obviously he says that the crop is strong, which means the price then starts to plummet. Then everyone else panics. They all try and sell their stock. So the price goes down even further. And then Winthorpe and Valentine then rebuy the stock at 29 cents on, rather than the 142 that they sold it on. So therefore they made a huge amount of money because they bought relatively low, they sold really high, and then they bought it back incredibly low at 29 cents. So
they bought it back, but what are they doing now? So they bought it back low. How did they get their private island and yacht? I don't understand how they got their private island and yacht.
They've made initial money, I assume, by buying it at a relatively decent, like a lower level, and selling it much higher. But then they bought it.
But they bought it back, so they have all those stocks. They haven't sold them.
But they bought it back. It's a future trade, so you're betting on the price on the 30th of April. So obviously they're selling it at Christmas. So they've got stock in their hand then, which they've paid 29 cents on.
Yeah.
So the price is incredibly low. So
it's just it's make money. So fucking frustrating because
it's ridiculous.
Like, you saw people chucking paper at each other, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And in the next scene, one of the dukes is having a heart attack. The other duke's just being a proper racist, and then they're on a private island. Like, how the fuck did you get on a private island? I don't know what happened.
Well, that's the thing. If you even if you just accept that all makes sense in terms of future trading on OJ stock, and they've got all the money in the world, and they can go off to their private island and live the rest of their lives in on yachts and whatever, and woolen jumpers on the beach. Like, even if you take away how mental it is that a major plot point of this movie is predicated on future trading on OJ stock, which is fucking insane. It's just insane. The end of this movie, even beyond that, is some of the craziest stuff you'll ever see. As soon as they go on that train, this movie turns into an SNL sketch from a completely different movie. Like, I know everyone gets caught up with the whole blackface thing, but that whole sequence is just bananas. Forget about, like, remember, in 1983, no one gave a shit about the blackface thing. Like, Eddie Murphy, supposedly Dan Aykroyd said, just like, listen, I probably wouldn't do it now, but we did it in 1983. It seemed funny. He said Eddie Murphy's entire entourage was there. Nobody had an issue with it. They were just like, oh, well, it's just part of the film, and he's doing it for laughs, no problem. The fact that all of a sudden you've got these somewhat uptight characters, for Winthorpe, it's completely out of character for him to suddenly dress up as a Jamaican and put on an accent. You've got, what's his name, the butler, Coleman, for some reason playing a drunk Irish priest. We have no idea why.
Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't know if she's meant to be Swedish or Finnish.
Or Norwegian, or whatever.
Norwegian, sorry.
Scandinavian. It's totally ridiculous. What's his name? Not Brooks. Beaks gets raped by a gorilla. Like, what the fuck? Like, this film is relatively close to reality for a large period of the film, by comedic standards. And then as soon as they got on that train, it just goes absolutely bananas. And then they rein it back in. All of a sudden, after the train and the blackface and the fucking gorilla rape, all of a sudden you're back on the trading floor and you're back with trading on orange futures. It's such a dramatic shift in tone.
They taped his mask up, but they didn't glue. They taped his mouth up, but they didn't glue his mask on. So at any point, he could have taken his mask off. So I'm just assuming that Deputy Chief Dwayne T. Robinson could have would just love being railed by a gorilla.
Maybe he did. Maybe it did. And then, like you said, like next thing you know, they're just on a tropical island where the craziest thing in the whole movie turns out to be Eddie Murphy wearing a Christmas jumper on a beach. Like, he's not supposed to be a Christmas jumper, but it is a full-on woolen jumper as he sunbathes.
Yeah.
Who the fuck thought that was a good idea? You got fucking Coleman dressed like the man from Del Monte, and then it's just credits. Like, I guess this is fine. This
even turns around.
Insane.
They even turn around to their own version of Tattoo as well and go, oh, we'll have the cracked crab and the lobster. All that guy needed to do was go boss the plane. Like,
it's
the
weird,
ending was
that's
absolutely insane. But
this whole film's weird.
I do love the premise, though. The premise is great in regards to taking somebody, as they say, it's breeding versus genetics. Taking somebody who's had all of their, what's the word? They've had all the right things in life, good
silver
schools,
spoon in their mouth.
Good family. Yeah. And will he survive in Eddie Murphy's place? And will Eddie Murphy survive in his place? Or is it down to genetics? Will he always want to steal? Will he always try to do this? And it's a good premise. It's fucking evil as fuck, especially for $1 to just ruin. Like, I mean, to be fair, Dan Aykroyd did need to be taken down a peg or two. I have no doubt about that. Like, he was an absolute asshole. But I loved it as well.
Sorry, I was just going to just agree with you there that it is fundamentally at the core a really good idea. The whole nature versus nurture, or whatever you want to call it, talent versus opportunity. There are some like really interesting ideas underpinning the concept. Concept underpinning the comedy, and it's like there is actually, like, if you think of this as a Christmas movie, there is a solid message there. The whole idea that if given the opportunity, you can achieve, or if you experience a modicum of relatable struggle, you can become a good person. As I guess Winthrop kind of does, and it's kind of going in that direction because obviously Ophelia takes care of him, and it looks like he's becoming much more grounded. And then just out of the blue, he has a complete nervous breakdown with the whole Santa suit thing. So I'm not quite sure what they were thinking there with the messaging. It's funny, but I'm not sure if it really works. But yeah, great concept underpinning the concept of the movie.
Fair play. Ophelia took him on board pretty much straight away.
She certainly did.
Again, she's being released from prison. Deputy Chief Dwayne T. Robinson comes up to her and says, "Oh, do you want to do me a favor?" And then she starts going on about how I need some crack or whatever. And I love everyone turning around to fucking Dan Aykroyd and going, "Oh, it was heroin." He goes, "It's not heroin. It was angel dust. It was PCP." It doesn't matter what you were arrested for, mate. You're making it sound worse.
Yeah, he's just. But that's the thing, isn't it? It's like these people there. He's incredibly smart, but he has no. I guess you refer to as street smarts. He has no common sense kind of thing because he's just never had to live in the real world. He's had Coleman just doing everything for him his whole life. Yeah, he knows about futures and trades and commodities and stuff, but in terms of dealing with everyday reality, he just has no idea. Which is again an interesting part of the story, but. I think it's great with Ophelia or Jamie Lee Curtis that she takes him in, and it's not just purely out of just the goodness of her heart. She clearly
she wants money.
Yeah, she sees the opportunity. Like it is that mix, and that's one of the cool things of this movie. It's not like this big, huge morality tale where you're being smashed over the head with it, and there's like melodrama at every turn. It's like she is both being a good person, but she's also being opportunistic. She's like she can see it's like, oh, this guy actually does have money. And if I take care of him, there's like a genuine opportunity that I might come out of this pretty well.
I loved it what she said as well when she said, "Look, I've saved 43,000. I've got 3 more years left on my back, and then I can retire." Like she's probably
well. I mean, it's good that she saved up that money because Jamie Lee Curtis makes for a terrible prostitute. The wig is just the worst. Like she is such an attractive woman, but she looks terrible as a prostitute. She's got that horrible dress on. I was going to say the terrible fur coat. My wife immediately said, "Oh, I love that fur coat." She loves those kind of chintzy things. It's terrible. But when she takes off the wig, she looks fantastic. But I just love that back in the 80s, like chewing gum used to be like the whore's accessory of choice. It's like there was like these kind of like overlapping things with prostitutes in the 80s. Chewing gum, wigs, bad wigs, and getting involved with rich men. Like those just seem to be this kind of ongoing thing in the 80s and prostitutes.
Off camera as well, Coleman licked that chewing gum when she gave it to him at the end to hold.
Well,
like off camera, he's licking that chewing gum. Also, with Coleman, it took me ages to realize where I'd known him from. I'm like,
Brody from Indiana Jones.
Do you know what? I didn't even link that.
Oh, really?
He was the headmaster from Toy Soldiers.
Well, I'm not surprised you went there instead of Indiana Jones. I just assumed you'd be talking about Indiana Jones, but he plays, I'd say, most famously Brody from Indiana Jones.
Now I can't fucking believe it.
Yes, also
he's the headmaster from Toy Soldiers.
Absolutely bonkers you went there first, but it's interesting you mentioned earlier the whole the concept that everything about this film, like even like the kind of not lack of morality, but the kind of subdued morality of it, the fact that it doesn't hit you over the head. I think it's another one of those movies that is the reason for that is because it straddles the 70s and the 80s again. We mentioned it a bunch of times on this podcast where the 80s didn't really start until 1984, and you saw that with Eddie Murphy's first feature film was 48 Hours.
Yeah.
And when you rewatch that, you're like, this feels like a 70s movie. Other than, obviously, Eddie Murphy himself. He feels like this bit of like 80s mania kind of thrown into what is an otherwise 70s film. And it feels the same with this. And it goes right down to the original casting. Like when they were writing this, it was written for Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder. And I can totally see that. It feels, other than... he gets his, what I refer to as his Eddie Murphy SNL moments at the start. Obviously, the train is its own thing. Everyone has their fucking moments. The lunatics are running the madhouse by that point of the film. But at the start of the film, he gets his little bit with the cops. He's like, I can see, I have legs and all that jazz. Like that's their let Eddie Murphy cook. But then after that, like 48 Hours, it just becomes a movie again. And there's like a long stretch, I would say, like in the middle of the film in particular, where it almost abandons comedy. It just becomes a drama for like 30 minutes until, it really goes bonkers at the end. But they had that confidence back then in the premise where they're like, we don't need this to be 90 minutes of just non-stop laughs or 100 minutes, whatever it is. We can, this is almost like a drama first and a comedy second. We've said this before about like Ghostbusters, 40 hours to bring that up again. It's like, all right, we're going to make this as a movie first, and then we're going to sprinkle on the comedy, rather than this kind of scattergun approach where it's just, we're just going to let these people be funny and we're going to vaguely build a movie around them. And it's a shame almost that they don't make movies like this anymore, especially for major stars. When was the last time a major star made like a really big comedy? It's just, fucking, for that matter, when was the last time there was a really good comedy? They just don't make them anymore. Like, it's legitimately insane. Like, if you could name like 3 really good comedies from the last decade, I reckon you'd struggle.
Oh, absolutely. I just don't find many things funny anymore. Hey, you mentioned the train, Ryan. You mentioned.
I think that was more of a comment on yourself rather than the state of the cinema. No. I just don't find things funny anymore. I have a wife. I have a kid. I've been driven down into the ground.
I didn't want to go into start talking about the comedies because I've held onto a piece of information I wanted to mention for the past 5 minutes, and I thought before we move on to something else, I will forget it if I don't mention it.
Go for it.
So you mentioned about the train, and you mentioned about them dressing up. Why, like, Eddie Murphy was Eddie Murphy, like, wearing a different. So, did Deputy Police Chief Dwayne T. Robinson, did he recognize, like, did he help set Eddie Murphy up?
Why do you keep saying, like, isn't it just Beaks? It doesn't ever.
It is Beaks, but I recognized him from Die Hard, so I'm just calling him Deputy Police Chief Dwayne T. Robinson.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're doing it for the rest of the podcast. That's fine.
No, that's because basically that's all he does in Die Hard, isn't it? Is Deputy Police Chief Dwayne T. Robinson.
See, it's weird again because when I thought about him, I totally forgot he was in Die
Breakfast
Hard.
Club.
And I immediately went to the Breakfast Club.
Breakfast Club,
Well, I'm not sure if he's the teacher or the headmaster, whatever he is.
He's the headmaster, yeah.
Headmaster.
So, but are they saying, and am I looking too deep into this? Are they saying that, because I'm pretty sure he helped set up Eddie Murphy.
Oh, he should know who Eddie Murphy is. The fact that Eddie Murphy is just wearing a fucking hat.
Yeah. So are they saying he's so racist he's never looked Eddie Murphy in the face? Or he sees them all as the same? Like, why did he not recognize Eddie Murphy?
Because, I mean, to be honest, he
saw
really
through the blackface and saw fucking.
He should have noticed Winthorpe. It's not exact. Like, make no mistake, this isn't fucking Coming to America, and I'm not just saying that because it's another John Landis film. You think of like Eddie Murphy in that. Like we've mentioned it before on this podcast, he is legitimately unrecognizable as the Jewish guy in the barbershop. Like, when I remember when I watched it for the first time, and they had the credits at the end, and they went Eddie Murphy, and they show all the people. I was like, there's no fucking way he was playing the white Jewish guy. That's insane. Like, if he had walked in dressed like that, you'd be like, oh yeah, you wouldn't recognize him. Forget about the fact that Eddie Murphy, like you said, you might be able to pass it off as, well, he's that racist that he just sees every black guy as the same.
Yeah.
But Winthorpe comes in with the clumsiest, most poorly implemented blackface I've ever seen, a terrible Jamaican accent, I might add, and he's just like, oh, I've never seen this guy before in my life. It's just, come on, Winthorpe. Beaks.
Dwayne T. Robinson.
Sorry, yeah, of course.
He also, with Jamie Lee Curtis, Ophelia, he spoke to her clearly because he offered her money in the police station.
That I can allow. That, like, she was wearing a wig then. He's just speaking to some random prostitute.
I don't know.
And then she shows up on the train, and let's be clear, he's not looking at her face. Like, that's part of the joke.
No. Yeah.
So I will allow him not like recognizing Jamie Lee Curtis, but not recognizing Valentine or Winthorpe is just it's bananas. But like I said, by that point of the film, all common sense has abandoned town. It's a completely different movie for like 15 minutes. I still don't even know why, one, there's a gorilla in the first place, or two, why Beaks goes after, like, the whole thing where like the gorilla's going past and Beaks starts like giving him shit through the train window. I'm just like, What the hell was that for? Then you've got, is it Jim Belushi having like having a party on the train? What kind of fucking train is this? And why would you only have one person looking after a gorilla? Why would the gorilla just be on a train, just a fucking passenger train? None of it makes any sense.
I mean, I'll tell them
about it for a second.
I'll give them their credit. There was 2 of them, but they were both stoned, and they should have been like Saturday Night Live. Yeah, that's right. Saturday Night Live hosts as well. Fucking absolutely insane. But going back to what you said, because it makes no sense. What's his name? I keep calling him Robinson. Is it Beaks?
Beaks.
Yeah. So if if that estimate thing is so important, like completely important,
Oh yeah, the insider
yeah,
trading thing. Yeah.
yeah. So why is and Beeks somehow becomes the guy who has to transport it?
Hmm.
Why are you showing him on TV and then telling him where he's traveling and not giving him an armed escort or anything? If it's so important to the future of the economy.
Well, it's not so interesting. It's just their money, and obviously they've worked with Beaks in the past, and I assume they just
No,
have
no,
the
no, not them.
confidence.
No, the whole of America.
Hmm.
Right. This is important to the whole of America. This report is going to judge the future of money, trades, everything, the
No,
crops.
no, 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 no,
Well,
no.
apparently it is, though, isn't it?
No,
It
no,
is.
it's only a big deal. You're on about the agriculture secretary going up on TV. It's
No, no,
only
no, not him.
important.
No, not him.
Okay.
Beeks himself. They showed Beeks get
Mhm,
out of a car with the report. Then they realized what was happening because
mhm.
Ophelia, when she was eating her salad and making her teeth green, was going, "That's the guy that paid me to talk
Oh
dirty
yeah,
to
yeah,
you."
yeah, yeah.
They showed him on TV
Mhm,
carrying this important report.
mhm.
And then he's on a train on his own. If it's that important and people can steal it off him and do what the boys have done, why
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
he
I
given
see
an
what you
armed
mean.
escort?
Well, I guess the whole point is because he's doing something underhanded. They don't want to bring attention to it, I suppose. So that would be the main thing. And
So
at
if
the
they
end
don't
of
want
the
to bring
day,
attention to it, don't be on fucking TV telling people where you're going to travel.
but also, in terms of like somebody stealing it, it's such a small, tiny group. They would have to know what they were looking at, and like it's only really of interest to these commodities brokers. Like if some Joe Schmo stole that off him like just by random, and he can just see, oh well, this is what the crop report is going to be for 1983. They're like, well, I don't give a shit. Why is this of
Yeah,
interest? It's
but
only interesting if you're planning on betting against it via a future trade. It's a
okay,
tiny, tiny, tiny percentile of the population which would have any
it
interest in
it
that
does
or know
it
what to
doesn't
do with it.
matter how small the percentile is. It's
Mhm,
about money. No matter how small the percentile is, there's somebody
mhm.
who wants to make money.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
somebody is going to try and steal it. And
Yeah, I
this
think it's just
apparently,
they've just like
and this is
he
this
steals from them. That's
but
it.
this is the future of everybody. This is important to everybody on that trading floor. So there should still be some. It's just really weird that to move the story along, they went, "This is an important document, and we're going to
Mhm.
show them on TV so our characters know where to go." It felt
Oh
so
God,
out
yeah,
of
no,
place to me.
I see what you mean from that perspective. In terms of you just happen to be on TV, it's ludicrous. It's ludicrous, and it's just a way. Like a lot of things in this movie just happen very quickly without any kind of explanation, just to move the plot along, and that's one of them. They need to get everybody in the right place and have an excuse. Like they needed them to get the report off Beaks, and they're just like, oh, it'd be easiest and quickest if they just see him on TV. And she says, oh, that's the guy who tried to bribe or paid me, and then they all have these like, oh well, we could do this and blah blah blah. It's ludicrous. It's like when how quickly Winthorpe's life falls to pieces. It's like it happens so quickly. Like how much power do what are the two guys, Randolph and Mortimer, actually have? And
Yeah,
how much power does Beaks have over the cops? Because he just whispers in a guy's ear, and next thing you know, his life is completely ruined. Even right down to the end, when Mortimer is losing his fucking mind in that supposedly off the cuff rant where it's like, oh, isn't your brother having a tiger? Fuck that guy, or whatever the fuck, whatever he says. It's like, guys just stroll out at the end, and it's clearly just for the audience. They're just like, oh, well, you haven't paid, and you know what you have to pay by the end of the day. And already they're talking about like, taking away all their stuff. They're completely broke. Nothing moves that quickly in finance. It's just for you as the observer and just
probably.
to keep the plot moving along.
It also probably moves that quickly when you found a way to get rid of these two assholes. Like they've
Mm-hmm.
probably been doing. Well, they have been doing it. Well, they said the floor's been open for like 70 years. There's always been a duke on the floor
Yeah, yeah.
or on a seat, and it just fucking at a clip. They were like, "We need to move this along, and we need to fucking get these guys out of here." Fucking
Yeah, 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 yeah.
390 odd million. Like how again? I don't understand how they figured that much by having their guy because they were upstairs. Their
Mhm.
guy was on the floor swapping pieces of paper. How did they know it was 390 odd million?
Well, that's the brilliance of trading floors in the 80s. It just looks like madness. Like honestly, the betting in The Running Man looks more organized than the trading floor in this
Yeah.
movie. And it is, it was true to life. And you think about the kind of money that was going on, and it's people just like shouting things out and handing over pieces of paper and that getting represented on the board. Like can't for the life of me figure out how exactly it's all working in terms of how that information is getting relayed to the right place and how it's having an effect on the numbers in real time. I just have no fucking idea. But, they've just spent 15 minutes fundamentally ending the movie with a trading floor dispute or, again, betting on orange juice futures. It's like, we've got to get the fucking plot moving. We've just got to explain as quickly as we can why they're rich, why they're broke, and why they're suddenly on a tropical island. It's insane. But,
sorry, I just realized as well, I was just checking my notes then. Fucking one of the guys, when they're in a country club, which is the worst country club I've ever seen. What a fucking like the wooden tennis rackets from the 80s and all those like show. And
everyone had those. Everyone had those tennis rackets in the 80s. I remember I had two of those in my house. Those wooden ones.
We did.
Ridiculous.
And those like the guys singing at the woman, and you got like Muffy and Buffy but so their names were Todd, Harry, Andrew, and Philip, right? Because he comes in and greets them when Winthorpe comes in. Harry was played by Nicholas Guest. Now, it means nothing to any of us. Nicholas Guest was Todd from National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Oh,
he was the next door neighbor who has the tree shoved up his ass. Yeah. But he was also... Yeah. He was also a cadet in Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
Oh, Jesus Christ, I can't remember that at all.
No, but why...
Considering we watched it like 2 weeks ago.
That we've done 3 of his 4 known fours, which is quite...
Unbelievable. Completely by accident, in case you hadn't guessed.
We're never going to do his 4th.
What's that?
Astro Boy. He was the French waiter robot, the voice of.
Astro Boy is in the Japanese animation?
No, is in the Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, but that's based on a famous Japanese
animation. It's based on, I'm talking about the American
film. No, I got you. Fair enough. Yeah, there's a few people who show up in this, like Bill Cobbs is the bartender briefly in this film. I'm not sure if you remember him.
I remember. I know Bill Cobbs.
Demolition Man. I know he's been in a whole bunch of films like New Jack City and stuff, but I will always just know him as the guy from Demolition Man. I don't even know his name in that film. But
I just know, he was a damn good pilot.
No, of course.
Oh, Zachary. Oh, I can't remember his second name, but he was Zachary something or other.
I can't remember now.
I love the pawnbroker. Was played by Bo Diddley.
Bo Diddley, what a fucking name. What a name.
Fantastic.
You kind of have to be an actor with that name. But I did love the fact that, you just have one of these movies where you just get some really random 80s shit again. Like, that's one of the joyous things about going back to 80s films, is just seeing 80s shit, which is just passed off as being normal. Like, I actually thought the car computer at the start is still fancy by 2024 standards. Like, they've got a Bloomberg machine in the back of their car showing trades. I'm like, if someone had that now, I'd be like, that's pretty badass. But one of the things which just disappeared, bathtubs in the floor, they used to be a thing. They've just disappeared.
Yeah, because there was so many people going for a late night piss and ended up calling the ambulance because they've fallen into the bathtub in the floor.
See, we're paying the price for idiots. I'm sure that's probably the reason why we don't have sofas in lifts anymore. When I saw Mortimer and Randolph come down the lift and they were sitting down, I was like, man, we are going backwards as a society that we don't have those anymore. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's got to be their private lift as well. There's no way they're letting other people go in there and use this sofa. That's their private lift.
The only thing which truly upset me, actually, was the TV in the cupboard. What the fuck was going on with that? Like, don't get me wrong, that whole sequence with Eddie Murphy when he takes Winthorpe's apartment or flat, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
It's one of the most relatable sequences, like how quickly he turns. Like, he invites everyone over to show off, and then within like 5 minutes, he's just tidying up behind everyone. He's just like, everyone get the fuck out. I'm just like, oh, dude, I totally understand. I'm totally the guy tidying up after everyone if they're staying at my place. But the TV in the cupboard on the floor is the most insane place I've ever seen a TV kept in my entire life. Like, it's not just the fact that it's in a cabinet. That almost feels like maybe it was a bit show-offy in 1983. But to have it on the fucking floor? What the fuck is... It's like they've never seen a TV before. Who does that? I don't know why it upset me so much. It just feels like maybe a Rob thing. But having a TV in a cabinet on the floor where there would usually be a fridge... Madness, absolute madness.
A little bit upset because I didn't really notice that. The thing I noticed was Coleman. Does he wear the chef hat to feel special, or is he made to?
I think he's
like he had a full-blown chef hat at the beginning of the film when he was preparing the food.
This is a different time. It's like, do we still have manservants and butlers? Are those still a thing? Like back in the 80s, it was a bit. Remember Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man?
Yeah.
Like, he was a very famous professional wrestler who just had a black manservant on WWF. Virgil was his black
Virgil,
manservant.
yeah.
Imagine if somebody pitched that in 2024. So, okay, you're going to be like the really rich white guy. All right, that sounds good. Yeah, you're going to be like, but constantly banging on about money. You're super rich, but you're obviously a badass wrestler as well. All right, so that's my gimmick. Yeah, but you're also going to have a black manservant. Well, I'm not sure how well that's going to go down.
I
But
mean,
again, when we were younger, nobody batted an eyelid. Nobody said shit. Everyone's like, yeah, that seems legit. Of course he would have a black manservant.
not in 2024, but in 2022, if Vince McMahon was still running, he'd probably go, that is fucking genius.
He might have done so. He might have done so. It's just one of those weird things where, like Ted DiBiase, like, you're just watching an old wrestling video from back in the day, because that's really my only connection to wrestling now is watching kind of old what you call them, not TV spots, when they go out and talk jive to each other or like talking to the camera.
Yeah, fucking promos.
Promos, yeah. I just love going back and watching old promos. And I was just watching one of Ted DiBiase with Virgil in the background wearing like a little gimpy vest, just rubbing his hands together. I was like, wowzers, we have moved on as a society.
You called out Bill Cobb. You didn't. I didn't give you time yet. Giancarlo Esposito was in the prison as one of the prisoners.
Yep.
Like, that's mad to see, because you see him, and it's really weird because again he came to light in everybody's eyes in Breaking Bad, obviously when he was, I think, Gus Fringe. But it's like he's bugging out in 1989 in fucking Do the Right Thing. That guy has been going for years, but just finally made it big and he was in The Usual Suspect.
And he's looked the same for like quite a while. But I actually love the prison sequence because it has what I can only refer to as old-fashioned African Americans. It's like, just again, this whole idea that this movie has got one foot in the 70s. You only have to listen to the way they talk. There's a lot of jive, turkey, sucker. Listen here, jive turkey. Listen here, sucker. I'm not even sure if they say sucker. They definitely say jive turkey. But there's a lot of that, like that way of speaking, which I associate. When I think of it, I almost think of like Airplane. Wait, was Airplane an 80s film or a 70s film? It was right on the button, wasn't it?
79.
It was either 79 or 80s. But it's that whole like culturally. It is officially the 80s. It's 1983, but those early years culturally, it's still got one foot in the 70s, and you can see that with those two black guys for sure.
I love those two massive prisoners. Airplane was 1980. I love those two prisoners because they kind of reminded me of you and me. Mm-hmm. You had the one guy just talking all the time, and then you had his friend that just says one word. And I don't believe that. Yeah. I don't believe that at all. Yeah.
We should try that. We should try the whole podcast. I'll just rattle on phrases. Yeah, and just come in with that every minute and a half or something, just see if that works. But again, it's just one of those things that feels distinctly 70s. And like, you only have to go to and I mentioned it a moment ago, the party back at his house. And I was like, why does everybody here look like a 70s pimp? And then I realized, I think, some of them are actually pimps.
Yeah.
And just
because that one guy goes, there's my bitch over there, or whatever he says about
it. But they've all got the hats with the fucking feathers and they look 70s as fuck. But the one thing I will say is distinctly 80s is the fact that everybody's just getting their boobs out for no apparent reason.
Oh my God. I couldn't remember. Look, okay, I appreciate like you had Jamie Lee Curtis gets hers out twice. The first one is like, you don't pay for it, you sleep on the settee. She goes, and then she decides to just, while he's ill, strip off and get into bed with him. Okay, fantastic.
Fantastic, yeah.
But then Eddie Murphy goes back to his now new house. He goes upstairs and there's a white girl in the bed going, I've been waiting for you. And he's like, get the fuck out. Then you go downstairs and you got that one woman who's like, I love dancing so much. You know what I'm going to do?
I'm just going to take my top off. I'm just going to take my top off.
And the way she does it as well, she's like, oh, I've never done this before in my life. Oh, like, love, you've done that a lot.
And then she just keeps it, but it's not even just like a flash. She just dances around topless. I mean, but that is the thing. For a generation of people, this was one of those, like, because you got to remember, when we were younger, there was you couldn't get your hands on pornography. There was, no internet for you, to suddenly look at these things. Jamie Lee Curtis getting her boobs out in this film was a big deal for a generation of people. And there's a reason for that. She just has, and I know this might sound somewhat crass and vulgar, but she just has the best tits. She's just amazing. She's so hot. It's ridiculous. Anyway, moving on. What was I going to say? I did have somewhere to go with this. Oh my God. No. Okay. I was going to say, as great as her boobs are, another thing that is great in this movie Dan Aykroyd being drunk, I think he's an all-timer. His sequence when he, like I said, it's weird that he goes off the rails so dramatically. It's not weird because obviously his life's going to shit, but he seems relatively level-headed. You have the sequence with him in bed, Ophelia's taking care of him when he's not feeling very well, and then all of a sudden he just goes fucking bananas, and he's wearing the grossest Santa suit of all
Where did he
time.
get that from, and why did they let him in?
Yeah, where did he literally get this super depressing Santa suit from? I have no idea. Although it's worth it just for one of the grimmest eating scenes ever committed to screen.
Oh, it down. It's so deranged and just awful. Eating the salmon with his Santa hair on the bus. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like he's half chewing his beard, half chewing the sand, and it's terrible. When this day and age, I look at it, and I'm like, for one, your first reaction is, why would you steal that salmon? Then you rewatch it and you go, that's a big ass piece of salmon. That salmon is super expensive now. I bet you that salmon would cost like about 80 quid. It's probably worth stealing.
This film,
It's going to eat it on the bus, of course. That's certainly gross.
this film, it's the most I've ever written of things that would have disgusted me if I'd been there in real life. So the salmon, obviously, the range and just the buffet thing with the carve your own meat. Like that's because people are just putting their hands on the meat and just pulling it while they're carving their own like prime rib or whatever it is. And then the other thing, when they're in the trading floor in the World Trade Center and they're in the they're in the bathroom and they're combing their hair. Well, he's combing his hair and then Valentine's picking his hair.
Yeah.
And then the bell goes off and everyone, and all of a sudden, then you realize that's the biggest bathroom I've ever seen. And about 500 men leave, and none of those dirty bastards wash their hands.
Yeah, and they're going to be passing around paperwork and all sorts.
Yeah,
It's pretty
it's
goddamn good. And there's
gross.
something about that bathroom. You think, oh, it'd be like really fancy because it's trading floor, World Trade Center, but it just looks a bit grim anyway. And yeah, like 8 of them all pop out. And I know what they're doing it for comedic effect. They're all just shitting themselves waiting for that moment. And they all pop out. But there's no escaping the fact that none of these dirty bastards wash their hands. It's absolutely gross. But nothing quite matches the salmon eating on the bus, which is absolutely grim. And again, that idea that he was going to kill himself. He didn't even get stopped. He only lived by pure luck. Like it was just a blank or I don't know, a misfire because he pulls the trigger, it doesn't go off. He throws the gun on the floor and then it goes off. You're like, oh, that thing was fucking loaded. He was just going to blow his brains out in the middle of the street on Christmas Eve. It's actually quite odd in that regard because we've mentioned a whole bunch of times the idea of this being a Christmas movie or whether it's Christmas adjacent. Because of the Christmas suit, people really do associate it with Christmas. But there are long stretches of this film where it's almost irrelevant that it's Christmas.
I mean, it's the build up to Christmas, and they say like, and you've got like Phelia's room where she's got the Santa thing, the Christmas deco on the cupboard, and then when he comes back dressed as Santa, she's decorating. She says, "Merry Christmas, Louis," and then all of a sudden it's New Year's Eve. And then all of a sudden, it's like what, January, because they fuck them over after New Year's, don't they? So they fuck them over in January.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of the briefest Christmas films ever.
Yeah, it's like Christmas is both really important to this movie and not important to it at all. It seems to kind of go back and forth. We've mentioned before, like, the obvious argument when you're talking about Christmas movies versus Christmas adjacent is Die Hard, in so much that, yes, there's a Christmas party, there's Christmas stuff, but you could remove that and it'd be the same film. The party could be anything. Christmas is, completely interchangeable. In this, Christmas does play a larger part, a more prominent role in the storytelling, but does so for like 15, 20 minutes and then is just completely abandoned and it is irrelevant for the rest of the film. So yes, it is a Christmas film, but to bring it back to the question I asked in the intro, could you still watch this film in, say, April? You absolutely could. It's not a traditional Christmas film by any stretch of the imagination. It's not about Christmas at all. It just has Christmas in it.
You could watch it any time of the year and you wouldn't feel bad about watching it. To be fair, I mean, my cousin watches Home Alone in summer. My cousin loves Home Alone, so she watches all year round, and I think it's a bit nuts.
It was weird. I was talking to someone about that recently, actually, in terms of like, Die Hard you can watch any time of the year. For me personally, Trading Places, I would push it to like you can watch it in April. I don't think it's mental, but I would feel a little bit weird. I'd want to push it towards the end. Home Alone is one of those I think you could start watching, say, very late November, early December, and it's okay. And then you've got films like It's a Wonderful Life. If you're watching It's a Wonderful Life in November, you should be arrested immediately. Like, that's so Christmassy that you should only really be watching it on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Those should be the only days when you're allowed to watch it. Whereas like Home Alone, you can watch during the Christmas season. So there's three set. There's Christmas adjacent, there's the run up to Christmas movies, and then there's the I'm only watching this on fucking Christmas Day movies, of which, like, 1955's A Christmas Carol. There's a very small number, and maybe some of those like Hallmark bullshit Christmas movies, which some people watch. I would only watch those kind of in the, right on the cusp of Christmas Day. But
I'm sure that Hallmark Christmas channel has been going since fucking October.
Like, oh yeah, well, it's up here. Like the Dome is a restaurant which is really famous, and they put up their Christmas lights, and obviously they do huge business. They went up in like September. They go like, if you're putting up anything to a Christmas before Halloween, again, you should be arrested, as far as I'm concerned. It's an absolute shocker. But
I've been to the Dome. I've been to the Dome. It's quite nice.
In Edinburgh. Oh, it's lovely. It's lovely. And it's right across, it's across the road from my office. So every morning when I go in, I see it there. It's all lit up and it's lovely at this time of year. But when you see it in like September, you're like, this is confusing the shit out of me, because I'm waking up and the first thing I'm seeing is Christmas. I'm like, dude, let me deal with Halloween first. It's fucking madness. Anything else to add before we move on to favorite scene?
Yeah, let me just check. Dirty fuckers didn't watch it.
I'm still not sure if we spent enough time talking about Lionel Joseph and the African Education Conference and all that shit. It's just, sorry to bring it up again, but it is so insane. And Bethan got caught up with the fact that this is the kind of research she did. When she heard that Eddie Murphy's character is playing somebody from Cameroon, she looked up traditional dress from Cameroon. That's not from Cameroon. So yeah, suppose that's bullshit as well. Not that I give a shit.
So for me, the only other thing I'd written down,
mm-hmm.
the second movie in a row to mention a Diners Club, and I've never heard of Diners Club before.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like, is it a credit card? Is it?
Is it kind of like if you go to an airport, you get what is it? Those rooms
Like the airport lounge.
Yeah. Is there something?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, I'm asking you. I could have easily Googled this.
Yeah, you could have.
Yeah, I could have.
Well, no. I mean, I wish I had the answer. See, I want to Google it now because now I want to know what a Diners Club is. I didn't really notice it, but yeah, it is mentioned in both Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and this film.
Because it's meant more prominently in that. Like when he says, "What cards have you got?" He goes, "I got a Diners Club." But in this one, when Winthorpe is showing off,
mm-hmm,
do you know what you get? You only get these if you're rich. You get a Diners Club card. You get, what the fuck is a Diners Club card?
If you Diners Club International enjoy access to world-class experiences, benefits, and services, and one of the first things that comes up is actually airport lounges. So yeah, it seems to be like access to just like specific services which you can only access if you're a Diners Club member.
Diners Club International, founded as Diners Club, is a charge card company owned by Discover Financial Services.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's a charge card. So that's credit.
Yeah, but I think it's like a fancy one. You've got to have like a certain. It's probably one of those things you have to have a certain amount of money in there, and as part of the service they offer you, it's like, oh well, if you have a Diners card, then you have access to all these additional features like airport lounges, etc.
With this and the explanation of how they made money, this has become the fucking money podcast.
The Financial Futures podcast. Who would have known? The Commodities podcast. How much fun? How Christmassy? How incredibly Christmassy. In terms of favorite scenes, I guess it would be churlish of me to say Jamie Lee Curtis getting her cans out, but I mean that's up there. Murphy and the Cops is full on Murphy, which I quite enjoy. But the fact is, it's the train sequence just because it is one of the most batshit sequences in a comedy movie in the 80s, especially, as I said, for a movie that is relatively grounded for most of its runtime, and then for it to just completely go insane. I know some people have issues with it, but I don't have issues with the blackface. And I know this is a white person with my white mouth coming out my white brain, but we can, if this was filmed now and someone did it, I would have an issue because you should have a bit more common sense. I don't think there was any ill intent. I can accept the fact that this was made in 1983 and, not be offended by it watching it now. I'm like, dude, the film's fucking 41 years old. It's okay. So yeah, I love that sequence, blackface and all, which is a weird fucking sentence of me to say, but hey-ho, it is what it is.
Jamie Lee Curtis getting a baps out. No, it's Eddie Murphy talking to the Dukes about like helping them make money, and then was it Mortimer leaves the money clip, and Eddie Murphy runs down runs down to the stairs and he goes, "Oh, Mortimer left his money clip," but he's not talking to Mortimer. He's talking to Randolph because he knows
Mhm.
Mortimer doesn't like him. It's like he looks past Mortimer, gives Randolph the money clip, and says, "Oh, Mortimer left it." And I
Mhm.
loved it then because Eddie Murphy's going to prove that he's a changed man. It's all there. You can check it, check it, check it, check. No, and I just thought, oh, that's so nice. That's so like I want to change my life, or I've been given this opportunity, and I
Mhm.
need to prove that I've changed. And I thought that was really good.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be you were going to reference the bold fourth wall break, which happens in this film. So they're having the
Yeah,
commodity brokers chat in reference to pork bellies, and I think it's Mortimer who says, "Oh, pork bellies used to make bacon, which you might find in bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich." And he like just looks straight down the camera as if to
yeah.
say, like, "What the fuck?" Again, a moment you wouldn't expect in this film. Although fourth wall breaks were much more prominent in 80s cinema and would often come out of nowhere.
It's funny as well because funny not in the right term, but old racist heads on them. They're
Mhm, mhm.
explaining to this guy like he is a child, like he doesn't understand it
Yeah, 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 yeah.
because, yeah,
Because they're
he's from the wrong
morons.
side of the tracks.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
just so funny. And it's just so
I just
fucking,
love the
oh,
fact
of
that he
course.
picks it up straight away. It's like, it sounds to me, they're like, "Oh, do you understand all that?" He's like, "Yeah, it sounds to me like you're a couple of bookies." Now, I work in asset management. And once you break it down, it's just posh betting. That's all it is. It's just posh versions of betting. You are saying, "Oh, I want to put money into this because I think it'll be worth more in the future." It's exactly the same as like I think the Broncos will beat the Raiders in this week's NFL game. It's like it is just fancy posh betting, and they are bookies. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. It's just the posh version. It's insane.
No, I've known you for years now. And we talk about your job as if it's a joke. But obviously, because you live in Edinburgh, I never see you go to your job. Do you wear a suit?
No, not anymore. I get away with it.
Okay, because I had to think then, like, where are you going to get the material for a
Oh,
suit for
don't
a
get me
start?
wrong. No, I
But
do. I do. I have had to wear like a suit a few times. Like if I'm doing a client presentation, like we've had clients in from like the US and stuff, and I've got to do a presentation of what my team does and just to prove to because they're planning on putting money into the company and blah blah blah. So I've got to go in and say our bit of why I manage our part of the business well and why it's good for them as our clients. And like honestly, every so often I have to put on a suit, and it's like I've forgotten because nowadays, you're only putting them on for like weddings, special occasions, and I'm like, but I went to put on like like the top button on a shirt
yeah,
up, and I was like, fuck it, I don't give a fuck how much this client is planning on putting into the company. I'm not doing up the top button on my shirt. I'll wear a tie, but the top button is just too much. I felt like I was just going to pass out immediately. It's horrible, horrible wearing a suit. And I used to wear a suit every day. Thank fuck I don't have to do that anymore. Horrible.
I've been told I'm fucked. If I ever gotta have a job now or just do anything where I have to wear long trousers, let alone a suit, just long trousers, it's just not going to work for me.
I mean, like long trousers. That includes like jeans or just
Yeah.
anything with material below the knee.
In all fair, when's the last time you've seen me wear anything except for, I say, a wedding? When's the last
Yeah,
time
yeah,
you've seen me
yeah. Well,
wear?
even at your wedding, you got dressed back into shorts as soon as you'd said "I do." It was fucking insane.
Oh, it was hot. You got to put some shorts on.
No, you don't. Everyone else still wore their suits. No one else brought shorts. It was just you. I mean, it's your wedding. Do what the fuck you
My
want.
wedding, I do what I want. Yeah, exactly.
Of course. In terms of loves and hates, for me, love number one, Murphy and Aykroyd are just perfect for the roles, and the fact that they're believable both ways. They like Eddie Murphy is and that's one of the things which is one of the reasons the movie works is that not only does he work as like this, from street hustler, it's like when he's taken in by Randolph and Mortimer,
Yeah.
you have to believe that he could take this on and that he is smart and that those kind of skills are applicable. It's like he totally pulls that off. And the same with Dan Aykroyd as Winfield. Is that his name?
Winthorpe. Winthorpe.
Winthorpe. Jesus Christ, I forgot his name. Winthorpe. Like the fact that he could just have a mental breakdown so quickly, or that he might fall in love with a prostitute, and he does become more relatable. I think they're both fantastic. Don Ameche, I think is his real name. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but
Yeah,
great
Don
name.
Amici.
Don Amici as Mortimer and Ralph Bellamy as Randolph. They're just absolutely fantastic to the point where they've become like the quintessential old rich guys. Like when you think of old rich jackasses, you just think of those two. I'm not sure if like the Muppets are
I
based on
wanted to
these
say they
guys.
reminded me of the Muppet guys.
They have to be based on them, right? The thing is now, I'm like, what came first? Like, obviously the Muppets have been around, but like the two old guys, are they just based off Randolph? They have to be, surely.
They
And
were
number
they were the Dukes in Coming to America as well, weren't they?
Well, that's stepping on, potential hopes to
Okay.
the future in terms of remake sequel. But we'll get to that in a second. And number three secretly has a very positive Christmas message about, and like I mentioned, without ever getting too melodramatic or too like on the nose with the messaging. And I'm going to sneak in number four, sofas and lifts, just fucking awesome. But those are my lists.
Sofas. Mine, Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd together, as you said, I
Mhm.
think are great. And I mean, put her on her own, but Jamie Lee Curtis. I know just Jamie Lee Curtis is the actress. I'm not going to
No, no,
be
no.
more.
Jokes aside, I know we've said a lot about her
Yeah,
boobs, and you have to remember they were a big deal when we were
that's
younger.
what I mean. I'm not going to
But
be any more
she's great.
lecherous. I'm not
No,
going to
no,
be any
no.
more lecherous. Jamie Lee Curtis is great in this film.
Yeah, she's genuinely, and this was an important role for her because she was still seen as like a scream queen. And I think people had their doubts, like, yeah, she was good in like horror movies, but could she expand beyond that? And this was the movie that proved that she had a life beyond the horror genre, and she's absolutely fantastic in this. And again, it's important that she's so likable, and she is. She's fantastic.
And Mortimer and Randolph to get Ralph Bellamy and Don Amici together, I
Mhm.
think were great.
Oh, she's
They
fantastic.
played, like you said, they played those upper class guys so well.
Oh, they're so
And
good, and it's weird actually with Randolph in particular because he's actually quite likable. Like Mortimer's always a bit of a dick, but
yeah,
Randolph has this whole idea, and his concept is actually quite a positive one for the most part. The whole idea, it doesn't matter about your color, creed, race. It's like if given the opportunity and give it, if you've got the talents, you can go on and achieve things. And you're like, oh wait, am I starting to like him? And then he just he drops an N bomb at the end of the film where they're both in like the bathroom washing their hands. It's like, are you going to let him like run the company there? It's like, oh no, no, I'm not going to let a N bomb run the company. Like, oh god, that which kind of undermines his whole argument. But
yeah.
what can you
And
do?
I'm
These guys
I'm
are
sneaking
racist.
in a fourth as well. Don Amici made me think of Cocoon. So
Oh, fair enough. I tell you
made
what,
me think of
you should see Don Amici when he was a younger man. He was
oh,
a
he's handsome,
handsome
yeah.
boy, handsome
It made me
motherfucker.
think fondly of Cocoon because I remember not liking Cocoon, but I don't know, seeing him again, thinks, oh, I'd like
I
to
see.
watch
I
Cocoon at
I
some point.
remember liking Cocoon when I was younger, and my mum loved that film, so I watched it a lot. It's a Ron Howard film, isn't it?
Yeah,
And I'm like, I think we might have to do it for the podcast because I think it would be a genuinely interesting rewatch. Because I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to like it because, like I said, I watched it a lot when I was younger, and it used to be on TV all the time. That movie has disappeared. It's
yeah.
fucking nobody talks about it. It's never on TV, and you're like, that's got like famous people in it. It's got a famous director. It had a pretty big budget. It was a big hit, big enough to have a sequel, and it's just fucking disappeared off the face of the earth. It's bizarre.
If nothing else for that film, it's for Wilford Brimley. I'll
Yeah,
watch
of course. Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
I'll watch anything with Wilford Brimley.
Who was the younger star? Was it what's his name from Police Academy, wasn't it?
Steve Gutenberg, who
Steve
made
Gutenberg. Yeah,
Steve
yes.
Gutenberg a star?
Yeah, I just
We
couldn't remember his
do.
name. Hates I just miss old fashioned 70s black chat like Jive Turkey and yeah, all that. Just yeah, you don't get that anymore. Yeah. Two, that they don't do comedies like this anymore. I know that sounds old fashioned, but the idea of having a relatively big budget comedy starring, big stars and be like, all right, this is going to be one of our big tentpole movies. This was the fourth biggest movie in 1983, and I'm like, we just don't get these anymore. It sucks. Three, I still can't believe that the plot hinges on trading on orange futures. It's so fucking strange that they're like, oh, this will work. I had to really watch that last sequence to try and make any sense of it. And despite my explanation earlier, I probably still got it wrong. And I'm going to sneak in a fourth one. The TV in the cupboard on the floor really upset me.
Didn't really need to sneak in a fourth one because your first two were nothing to do about the film. They were how they made you feel,
Yeah, it's
which
a good
is
point. It's a good
fucking
point.
tenuous as fuck again.
Okay. I'll get another one in then, which is genuinely about the film. Jamie Lee Curtis's wig when she's dressed as a prostitute is
There you
genuinely
go.
upsetting. Yeah, it makes it look horrible. It makes a very attractive woman look relatively unpleasant, and that's not the point.
Hates for me the good morning shit. Just
Mhm.
started to just get on my nerves. Where it's like, good morning, Mr. Winthrop. Good morning, Mr. Winthrop. Good morning,
Oh
Mr.
yeah, but it's supposed to get on your nerves. I think
Yeah,
it's
and
just
it
like
did.
how
It did.
benign and like pointless it
Yeah,
all is.
but it did, and it was a hate about the film, so
Mhm.
it works for the
Fair
section.
enough. Fair enough.
The other one was not knowing how the fuck they made their money. I still don't. I still don't get it. Everyone's throwing paper at somebody else, and apparently it's enough to make a private island. Fucking weird as fuck to me.
It does. I think it does make sense. I understand that, like the actual system on the trading floor is still somewhat obtuse in so much that I don't know how the information is being relayed, but the concept behind it, their plan does fundamentally work.
This is why you do what you do for a living and what I do for a living. I don't mess with fucking
I
money. So,
definitely don't mess with future trading. That's for damn sure.
and the other one is just throwing in a random like love for Coleman and Eddie Murphy at the end. You've got
Yeah, that was
Ophelia and Win.
bizarre. Great
You've got
chat.
Ophelia and Winthorpe.
Yeah,
Like,
makes
okay, that's
sense.
fine. And they're on the like feeling good, Lewis, looking good, Billy Ray. Like, oh, that's fucking great. What an ending. And she's blowing him kisses and it looks great.
Mhm.
And then all of it's like you got some random woman next to him and they're looking at each other like they've had a love story this entire
Yeah,
film.
it's insane.
And Coleman's got his Thai bride. It was
It's
so
odd. I almost missed that because I was so fixated on Eddie Murphy's jumper in that sequence. But it's a great point. It's completely unnecessary, and it comes out of nowhere. Especially like you say, that look as if to say, "Oh my god, I can't believe we finally made it to the beach, baby. We did this together." Who the fuck is this bitch? I have no idea. It's crazy. Great
I
chat.
didn't recognize her with her top on. It was probably one of the women in the party.
Maybe it was. Well, I don't know. He
Yeah.
didn't seem keen on anyone in that party anymore. Alternative titles.
Sorry, I was just taking a drink. Yeah, we got a couple of alternative titles. Where the flip did I put them? There they are. Right. So Argentina, from beggar to millionaire.
It's okay.
Yeah, ready? Austria, the soldiers of fortune.
Nope, nope. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Brazil, changing the balls.
Changing the balls.
Yeah.
No, nope, nope, nope. Doesn't make any sense.
Canada, French Canada, an armchair for two.
An armchair for two.
Yeah,
Again,
somebody just looked at that. Somebody looked at that lift scene and thought, you know what?
is this one of those like cultural in jokes again? I just remember I may have mentioned it before, but I went to see a Bollywood movie called Dangal, and we were the only white people there. Everyone else, well, they appeared Indian. I'm not sure Pakistani, whatever, but they were, it was a distinctly Indian looking crowd, should we say? And about halfway through the movie, somebody makes a joke about eating chicken inside. And
Yeah.
it brought the fucking house down. And Beth and I looked at each other and went, I have no idea what's going on. It's just one of those wonderfully cultural moments where it's gone completely over our head. So maybe it's the same with Canada calling it. What was it again?
An armchair for two.
Yeah, oh, Jesus Christ. All right, go for it.
Right. Colombia, two madmen on the loose in New York. Well, for a start, they
No.
were in Philadelphia for most of the time.
Yeah, it's a Philadelphia movie. And
Yeah.
we didn't mention that actually. This was like the time, the era of like love letters to cities. Remember when we did, was it 40 hours?
Yeah.
Like, was it 40 hours where they just have like long sequences at the start where it's just like, no, I think it was Beverly Hills Cop. And it's just like, oh, look, it's Detroit. And they just show like this does the same at the start. It spends a lot of time just going, oh, look, Philly. You like Philly. But yeah, it's definitely a Philly movie first and foremost.
These titles are fantastic. Croatia, Wheel of Fortune.
No.
Czech Republic, Confusion.
Yeah, I guess there is some confusion.
Denmark, The Boss and the Pimple.
The Boss and the Pimple.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
this
not
is
making these up.
definitely this is yeah, that's another case of eating chicken inside. That's
Yeah.
fuck knows what's going on there.
Finland, Barter.
Maybe better than some of the
Hungary,
others.
Hungary, Role Reversal.
As bad as that is one of the best ones.
Kazakhstan,
Mhm.
Switch Seats.
It kind of works.
Lithuania, Swap Places.
Yeah, it just feels like bad. It feels like synonym versions of Trading Places at this point.
Poland, Unexpected Change of Places.
Yeah, that's a synonym, and then run through Google Translate at this point.
Yeah. Portugal, The Rich and the Poor.
That's okay.
Spain, The Game is Between Rascals.
Spain, surely you can do better than that. Jesus wept.
Taiwan tried. You fix me, I'll fix you.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
Turkey, Rich and Miserable.
Yeah, you can make an argument for that. I mean, is he miserable though? Like he's a douchebag, and he's got like what 3 identical framed pictures of his wife, like in just every room, which is just depressing as fuck. But yeah, I'm not sure if he's rich and miserable.
Uzbekistan, Swap Locations.
No.
And Vietnam, Sword Floor.
Sword Floor.
So cool.
I think, considering how many there were, I think that might have been the worst collection of alternative titles we've ever come across. And I really wasn't expecting. I was like, oh, there'll be quite a few. Trading Places is pretty big. There's a lot of different directions you could go, but I didn't expect that. Jesus Christ! Like 80% of them are just complete bollocks, which is kind of fun, I suppose. Any facts for this film?
So Ralph Bellamy, Randolph, and Don Amici Mortimer make cameo appearances in Coming to America as the same characters. The two
Mhm.
are now homeless, and Prince Akeem gives them a large amount of money to get them back off the streets.
Mhm.
It's been ages since I've watched Coming to America because I really don't remember that part.
Yeah,
So
he's walking down the street and they're just laying on the street, and he's like, Mortimer, Mortimer, look, look, we're back. I'm not sure if that's
several
verbatim, but it's close to that anyway.
several funny moments in the film came about by accident. Mortimer Duke having trouble catching a money clip wasn't supposed to happen, but the actors kept going with it and not breaking character, so
Oh,
it
I
was
can
kept in the
totally
movie.
tell.
Oh, it was awesome.
You couldn't do that on purpose. The way he keeps flicking up and almost catching it. If you try to do that, it will always look forced. You can
Yeah.
totally tell that they just stayed in character for that sequence.
Ophelia's Swedish disguise came about because Jamie Lee Curtis couldn't do the correct Austrian accent.
I don't think that matters. I think it was the look, and well, it is what it is.
This was Ralph Bellamy's 99th film and Don Amici's 49th. This was Eddie Murphy's second film, and he joked, between the three of us, we've made 150 movies.
That's fantastic. Although I'm not sure if we mentioned the whole Murphy run. So if we don't count 1984's inexplicably bad Best Defense, he does 40 Hours in 82, which we've covered on this podcast. So we mentioned he shows up as a ready-made movie star. Trading Places in 83, Beverly Hills Cop in 84, Golden Child in 86, Cop 2 in 87, and Coming to America in 88. It's an unbelievable, if you consider that is the start of his career.
Yeah.
It's a fucking unbelievable run. Things quickly start going off the rail. And part of it is John Landis' fault, because John Landis, for as brilliant as a director he's been, he directed Animal House, Blues Brothers, Coming to America, The Three Amigos is another one we should probably do on this podcast. He also directed Beverly Hills Cop 3, which is one of the worst sequels of all time. He actually also directed Blues Brothers 2000. I would say he has directed two of the worst sequels in movie history. I don't think that's too much of an exaggeration. If you think I'm bullshitting there, go back and watch Beverly Hills Cop 3. It is inexplicably bad. Although, for all of his good movies, I would say he's arguably most famous for directing Michael Jackson's Thriller music video. Because, I think I don't even think it's an argument. That is the most famous music video of all time. Like, when I was younger, Banks, one of my friends, he had that on VHS. They were just selling fucking Thriller on VHS, a music video. And we watched it all the fucking time because it was just the coolest music video of all time. I can't think of anything which comes close to it in terms of just how famous it was.
Right, going back to facts, Eddie Murphy later admitted that on the floor.
Liam, are you done? Are you fucking done, Liam? Can I go back to facts?
Sometimes we need to put these videos on because you just keep talking and I'm just there going nodding, going yeah.
No, see, that was your moment. I was supposed to say all that, and then yeah. Too tired. I've worn you down.
Eddie Murphy later admitted that on the floor of the commodities exchange in the final scene, he only followed the script. He had no idea what was going on as he found commodities trading incredibly confusing. I'm with him.
So did everyone else. For years, it was only because we're doing it for a podcast. I was like, I'm going to have to actually pay attention to what's going on at the end. But it's like, who the fuck knew what was going on the first time they watched this film? Nobody did.
The story about the Duke's cornering of the orange juice market was probably inspired by the Silver Thursday market crash of March 27, 1980, when the Hunt brothers of Texas tried to corner the silver market and subsequently failed to meet a $100 million margin call. I mean, it's not $397 million, but still.
Yeah, they just you'd almost think if they made it about silver or gold, it'd be more relatable. But when people are like, wait, orange juice, what the fuck is going on here?
According to John Landis, Jamie Lee Curtis was a hard sell to Paramount because she'd only done horror films and wasn't known for comedy.
Yep.
But he admitted her willingness to perform topless helped change executives' minds at Paramount after they saw a photo of her in a bikini they felt that would help sell the movie. What a bunch of lecherous men.
I know, but they're right. They're right. And
I mean, I can't throw them under the bus when we've just been fucking going on about it.
We're all dirty bastards. It's an important part of this film. It just is. I don't care what anyone says. If you say otherwise, you're full of shit. Jamie Lee Curtis taking a top off in this film is an important part of this movie's legacy.
The Duke's starting salary for Valentine, 80 grand, is over 223,000 when adjusted for inflation in 2021. Their $5 Christmas bonus for Ezra is equivalent to about $14 in 2021.
And that's from both of them, remember? That is from
Yeah.
both of them. Fantastic.
Valentine's alias when he poses an exchange student from Cameroon on a train is Nango Aboko, which is the real name of a town in Cameroon.
Oh, what a great name. Not the Bango Anoko or whatever that it was. I mean, just Billy, what is it? Billy Ray Valentine is just
Billy
one
Ray
of the
Valentine, yeah.
all-time movie names. How they came up with that? You'd think he'd have like something of an innocuous name, like, no, we'd call him Billy Ray Valentine. Jesus Christ.
We didn't give him much credit, to be fair, because we said about the name Bo Diddley. R&B legend Bo Diddley appears as the pawnbroker who buys Lewis's watch
There we go. Finally getting the dues he deserves.
on a random podcast from two Welsh lads. Okay.
Mhm.
Premiere voted this movie as one of the 50 greatest comedies of all time in 2006.
I think that's fair
And
enough.
last one. After Richard Pryor dropped out of the project early on, Gene Wilder pulled out soon after when he heard that Eddie Murphy said he would do the film, but not with Wilder, as he didn't want to be seen as copying Pryor's style. However, the script still was being written at that point with Pryor and Wilder in mind, so some of the dialogue written for Pryor was instead given to Murphy. This is particularly noticeable in the street begging scenes near the beginning of the film, as Murphy was far too young to be a Vietnam veteran, though the joke still works because he's a con man.
Yeah. It's a good point. Yeah, I guess it works both ways. But yeah, I mean, Eddie Murphy was already pretty famous for kind of imitating Richard Pryor during his stand-up. I'm not sure if it was Raw or Delirious, but he used to do it quite a lot. But it was very much kind of taking the mantle. He was like, taking the baton from Richard Pryor's away. So I can see why he didn't want to kind of like step into his lane and be like, no, that's their thing. I've got to do my own thing over here. And it worked out for the best. It's like he and Aykroyd are fantastic together. Although not quite to the level of Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor, admittedly.
That's it.
Any others? That's
it. Yeah, there was loads, so I just figured.
Hug to Future. So, as we asked the question, should there be a remake sequel? Let It Die or Leave Well Alone. We've already mentioned the fact that there is something of an unofficial sequel with Coming to America with Randolph and Morta getting their cameo in that film. My immediate response was Leave It Alone, but I did see somebody crafted a fantasy cast, albeit 10 years ago. I think it still works. So they had Jason Bateman and Kevin Hart, unsurprisingly Kevin Hart, in the two lead roles. Then they had Frank Langella and Chris Cooper as Randolph and Mortimer, which I thought was pretty good, actually. Then Colin Firth as Coleman and Aubrey Plaza as Ophelia. And I was like, that's not bad. That's not a bad cast, actually. I still don't think you should remake it, but I was like, if you were going to remake it and you had that cast, I'd be like, give it a go.
Yeah, I'd watch it for Aubrey Plaza. I think she's great. I think she's fantastic.
Oh yeah, she's awesome. But I quite like Chris Cooper and Frank Langella as Mortimer and Randolph. I can totally imagine those just being grumpy bastards. But anyway, but still, Leave Well Alone all the same. How about you?
Yeah, for me, I wouldn't. I'd leave it alone. Like it's of its time. It's funny for the time it was. It's just I don't think they're going to be able to explain orange juice or anything to buy a private island this day and age. It's of its time. Just leave it be, I think.
Yeah. And it's become now, I think, as I said, with each passing year, it becomes more and more of a Christmas classic. And when it gets to that level, I'm just like, just leave it alone. I just don't think you need to remake it. To make changes, where we ask a question, if you can only make one change to make this movie better, I mean, it's probably trading on orange futures, right? I mean, we've kind of tried to explain it to one extent or another on this podcast, but that's the one part of the film where you just kind of sit there and go, what exactly is happening and why do we give a shit? And especially coming off the zany antics on the train, it's a bit of a stretch. I would go with that. Either that or do a better job of explaining Winthrop's mental breakdown when he seems to be doing quite well with Ophelia, if truth be told.
More of an explanation about how they threw Deputy Chief Dwayne T. Robinson.
You're back to that.
I was going to say under the bus, but under the gorilla. Because all they did was show that they wrapped his mouth up. Like, he could have taken his mask off at any point, but did he fall in love with the gorilla? Was that it? Did he love getting fucked by the gorilla?
I assume they tied his hands up because surely they did something. But yeah, I guess
he was pouring at his mask.
Oh yeah. Did they tape the mask off? It's very strange. That the whole thing, don't get me wrong, I don't want them to remove it. And it's not the change I would make because it's so insane that it kind of works. But the whole sequence with the gorilla is batshit. In a batshit sequence, the whole thing with the gorilla stands out like a sore thumb all the same. It's insane. People keep talking about the blackface and stuff. The weirdest thing that happens in that sequence is definitely Beaks getting raped by a gorilla, without question. Very strange. Video games, I've literally got fuck knows. There wasn't a video game. I don't know how you turn this into a video game. I don't know what the modern equivalent would be. So I've got absolutely nothing under video games.
I
Can you
mean,
save the day?
I'll try and save us, but I have gone so left field. It's not even funny.
Well, just better than nothing.
Do you remember a game called Largo Winch?
Fuck, that is left field. No, I've not heard of Largo Winch. Is
So
that a
Largo
PC
Winch
game?
was, yeah, no, it was a PS2 game as well. So Largo Winch is a Belgian comic book series about just basically a guy who uh has a business empire that's being under threat, and then he
Mhm.
has to like do some sort of action and just action adventure shit. Well, they released a video game for it, but it was like a puzzle based game. So
Mhm.
it could be the same thing with the business side of it. And then just,
Mhm.
just it's really hard to explain because I never played it.
I
I just
can't
know
remember
about it.
any of that. I can see it now, and it was
Yeah.
on the Xbox. It was on supposedly it was on the GameCube.
Yeah.
Yeah, GameCube, PS2. I've never seen it, and Jesus Christ, that era of video games in particular. It's like I'd like to know most video games kind of thing, or at least kind of recognize the name or the cover. But Largo Winch is absolutely blind spot for me.
Yeah. Uh, published by Ubisoft, but developed by Dupois.
Mhm.
Uh, and that was the best thing I could come up with. It was like
That's not
business
bad.
orientated with puzzles and shit. So I thought, you know what, that'll work. You could have scenes where you're on a trading room floor and you've got to run through it
Mhm.
to get to the point where you can trade your
Jesus
orange juice
Christ.
futures and shit.
I'm gonna have to trust your judgment here because I have no idea what that is. But it looks like it
So,
might fit the bill, so
yeah.
not a bad shout at all. Like I said, much better than fuck knows. Best and worst of IMDb. So this is going to be another one of those weird ones. Sorry to explain it. This is where we'll take a random 10-star and one star review of this movie just to get an idea of just absolute psychos at one end of the spectrum or the other. I suspect there'll be quite a few 10-star reviews. I'm not sure, will this film have any 1-star reviews?
That's interesting, isn't it? Let's find out.
Go for it. Let me know.
Right, so 265 reviews. And to be fair, I thought there would be more, but yep, you got 265. And of them, there were 60 10-star reviews. So again,
That
just
sounds
pulling
about
one.
right.
Yep.
That's a pretty high percentage. But a lot of
Yep.
people
So
love this film.
pulling one out at random from the 21st of December 2000. Hugely funny film, Eddie Murphy's finest moment. Right from
Mm.
the opening credits, this film shows quality. It stands above other comedies due to the lack of filler material. Every line is memorable. The cast is great. The two leads make the most of their characters, both as brokers and bums, but never overstep the mark. Thanks partly to the tight editing. The plot becomes a little bizarre, but by that time you're already hooked. And the ending of the film is pure joy. To my mind, no recent comedy has been this good. It mixes high and low brow jokes without resorting to toilet humor. It doesn't pull any punches. Spot the social commentary. The performances are masterful, and the script achieves depth without sacrificing the one-liners or slowing the pace.
I think that's largely reasonable. I don't agree that it's Murphy's finest moments. I think it's one of his many high moments. Let's be clear, mostly from the '80s. Although he's had like a few moments more recently, I suppose. But yeah, it is a really good movie, and I think again to bring it back to the point we made at the start of the podcast, it fundamentally works because it works as a movie first and foremost, and then as a comedy second. And you do have a good director, great performances across the board. It's not just like reliant upon a few cheap laughs. But yeah, I agree with most of that.
Yep. On the other side of that spectrum, then that coin, it's 2 reviews for 1 star. It's only
Oh,
2.
see, yeah. I didn't think there'd
Yeah.
be many at all.
So this one is from the 24th of December 2012. So on Christmas Eve, he's decided, you know what, I've watched this as a Christmas film and it's not
Oh,
funny.
I love that. He's watched it on Christmas Eve and felt the need to review it immediately. True
Yeah.
hatred.
So his title is Not Funny.
There we
Too
go.
long, not enough laughs. Dan Aykroyd can't act. I was 19 when this movie came out, and even then, I was not convinced by the hype it got, and rightly so. It was unfunny and boring then, and after just rewatching it with my now bored to death teenage kids, I realized it was even worse than I thought. The plot is okay to begin with, but then drifts into a tedious share trading nonsense with a story akin to a Scooby Doo episode. Anyhow, anyone that reckons this is the best comedy they have seen, etc., is a moron, and is probably the sort of person that tells boring long jokes. that no one laughs at and lives with a bedridden fat person. It's a bit like a cross between a
Oh my
bad Disney movie and a maths lesson you once fell asleep in. Like, fucking hell, dude.
Jesus Christ. Christmas Eve as well. Where's your
Yeah.
Christmas spirit, you fucking lunatic? I mean, yeah, for a while I was just trying to get on board. It's like, well, if you don't really click with things, and then you just went full mental towards the end. So
Where
no, I
did the
do
bedridden
not agree with their review at all.
where did the bedridden fat person come
I
from?
don't know. That's the one that's like, Randolph or Mortimer, whoever it was, like dropping the N bomb out of nowhere. You're like,
Yeah.
woof, that came out of left field. So yes, don't not agree with those, but I'm glad to see that the majority were 10-star rather than 1 star. And I
Yeah.
assume as well the majority of reviews are more towards like the 7, 8, 9 end of the spectrum. It's just this is one of those films that is just beloved, and as I said, I feel like it's becoming more beloved with each passing year.
Yeah.
In terms of our own ratings and recommendations, it feels quite boring for me, but it's a 4 and a yes. I think it's aged pretty well. I don't think, despite what that poor person said, I don't think it has pacing issues. Far from it. I don't think the fact that the future is trading on orange juice is a little bit complex, like a needlessly, I don't know, obtuse, if I'm going to use that term again. I don't think it impacts the movie in any way. Uh, Murphy and Dan Aykroyd are both fantastic. So yeah, 4 and a yes for me.
For me, it's a great film. I pretty much agree with everything you said, but it's a 3. I
Mhm,
wanted to give it a 4, but I'm trying to concentrate too much on how they made the money and got the
mhm.
island at the end just seemed a bit outrageous. So it kind
Yeah.
of knocked it down. So it's a 3, but
Mhm,
it is a recommend. It's so fun to watch.
mhm,
It is
mhm,
fun to watch. It's fun to see to see Eddie Murphy like, and I know this is his second film, but it's not peak Murphy as people have said. It's like he tones it down, and it's really
mhm,
sad to say that he tones it down when he hasn't found his acting chops yet because it's only a second film.
mhm.
But it doesn't feel like full Murphy until you get to the likes of Beverly Hills Cop 3 and stuff like that. So
Yeah, well,
yeah,
I guess the difference with that. That's the first film where the movie is resting on his shoulders. In this, don't get me wrong, he is a star, but he is sitting alongside Nick Nolte in 48 Hours and Dan Aykroyd, and a big part of it is he's playing off them. And don't get me wrong, like we said with the 48 Hours podcast, he was a ready-made movie star, but he had another person to lean on. Whereas with Beverly Hills Cop, by that point, they're just like, this is just the Eddie Murphy show.
yeah.
And we're just going to let him cook. And a lot of that obviously comes with him ad libbing. It's trickier to ad lib when you've got another performance. And, there's maybe a more kind of stringent plot to adhere to with these films than there was with Beverly Hills Cop. I'm not sure if that's even true, but I'll stick to my guns all the same. But yeah, he's still very good in this. So, but yeah, I'm gonna go with 4, but like 3, yeah, sure, whatever. Just
Yeah,
like
it's
I
around
said,
about
when
the
I was
same.
younger, if you'd asked me when I was younger, I always thought this was like a 3-star film. I was just never that fussed, but I've warmed to it greatly over the last few years.
Cool.
That's it. All right, all
Yeah.
right. So next week, we're still very much in Christmas season, but sir, it is your choice.
Yeah, this is again a left field Christmas film. Just I've
Christmas
decided this.
adjacent.
Well, yeah, I've decided to. I'm. What's the word? I've set a niche now, and I'm sticking to it.
Mhm.
So
Well,
the
after
year
picking
is
a Thanksgiving movie, this is just going to be like a fucking summer movie now, is it?
no. This is definitely set at Christmas. Is it a
Okay, well,
Christmas
that's
film?
okay. We'll find out.
I nearly gave you the title straight away. Then the year is 1996. Yeah.
1996. Christmas adjacent. Oh no. And first thing I popped into is like, I don't know, Face Off or something. Fifth Element, was that 96? I think that was 96. Not very Christmassy.
We've done Fifth Element.
I know, and we've done Face Off, so it's definitely
Yeah.
not those. And plus, they're not Christmas movies, so I have
Yeah.
no idea what the fuck. I'm just literally trying to think of movies made in 1996. I'm like, was The English Patient 1996? It's like, fuck me. Imagine if you picked that.
The
Jesus
day
Christ.
I picked The English Patient.
It's like, oh, Driving Miss Daisy, perhaps. I think that's actually a little bit earlier. Maybe just because I've got Dan Aykroyd on the brain, but no idea. Obviously,
The director is Rennie Harlin.
Rennie Hart. Oh god, this is going to be a dodgy film, isn't it? Um, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not got
No.
it.
Okay, so one of the actors is Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson,
Yeah.
1996. Is it a comedy?
No.
Fuck. I feel like I should be getting this now.
Okay, I'll give you the other actor, and if you don't get it from the other actor, then I'll give you the title. But you should
Okay.
get it now. Gina Davis.
Oh, Long Kiss Goodnight.
There it is.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a Shane Black film. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It's, as far as I'm concerned, if it's a Shane Black film, it's a Christmas film. He fucking loves Christmas. And there's plenty of snow in that film.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's a great show. That is a
It's
fucking
set at Christmas.
great. Yeah. Dude,
Mate,
honestly.
I've been wanting to watch it for ages, right? But
I-
us in the UK, it hasn't come anywhere. Like, I haven't been able to find it, but it's finally on streaming. So I figured
that's another one of those films. Like, it's not quite as egregious as Cocoon, because Cocoon was a massive film which disappeared. But it felt like this was a pretty big deal, even though it was a massive financial bomb. Like, they paid a fortune for the script and stuff. But it feels like there's another one of those films which just kind of disappeared off the map. But funny enough, I can say it now because I'm definitely not picking it for next week. I was going to do Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
So was I.
But don't get me wrong, I actually think this is going to be, I'm not saying a more interesting one. It's just I've not seen this film for a while. And for a few years, this felt like a big deal. And I had a bit of a crush on Gina Davis. She is a strong, handsome woman.
Yes. Me too. And I was telling Dave about this.
I bet you he loves her. He loves
said the same thing.
weirdly handsome, mannish women, doesn't he?
Yeah, he said he had a thing for us. So, so that's all three of us.
Any woman who looked like she might be able to kick his ass, it's like that seemed to be his thing. And then he married a girl who's like 4'7".
Do you know, I see a T-shirt, and every time I see this T-shirt, I think I need to send it to him because it reminds me of the women like he said he loved in the 80s, like Sarah Connor and Ripley.
China.
Yeah. Don't bully me, I'll come.
So that is so upsetting on so many levels. I'm honestly just trying to think of any way to finish this podcast other than on that fucking T-shirt. But no, we're stuck with it. But no, like, jokes aside, I genuinely think that's a great shout. I can't actually remember if it is specifically a Christmas film, but it's got loads of snow. It's a fucking Shane Black movie. That is close enough for government work as far as I'm concerned.
It's like there is if I remember rightly, there's a scene in it where the daughter goes, "What do you want for Christmas?" Christmas is mentioned. I'll be back for Christmas. Christmas is all over this film. So
okay, it probably is. In fact, when you sold me on the idea that this was like Christmas adjacent, and now you're telling me it's just a fucking Christmas movie.
Well,
so I know what you mean. I know what
you
mean. No, but yeah, I remember really liking this film. But
me too.
It's another one of those weird ones that I've not seen in donkey. And maybe it's for the reason you said, because I don't own it on DVD or Blu-ray or anything, and maybe it just doesn't show up on TV. You don't get it on any of the streaming services, so you just kind of forget about it. But yeah, great excuse to go back to it for sure.
Absolutely.
Is there anywhere to actually watch it now then?
For us, yeah. So we have to rent it over this one. So sorry, I'm costing you money for Christmas.
That's all right.
But I think it's on YouTube, Apple, and for us, Sky. So we can rent it on Sky. So yeah,
as long as I get my hands on
it,
there's
3 ways for us to grab it. Yeah.
But that is a fantastic shout. I'm genuinely looking forward to that. So yeah, this has been the Trading Places podcast. Do join us next week for the Long Kiss Goodnight. Fantastic shout. Do you have anything else to add before we wrap this up?
No, I better not, because somebody is shoving candy canes under the door, so I think he wants to come in. So
that sounds like it could be a horror film as well. That sounds like the kind of shit that Krampus would do or something.
Well, I was on my own when I started this. I'm hoping my kid is home.
Yeah, fingers crossed. See, how creepy would that be if you just open the door, or you get a phone call now from your wife saying, "Oh yeah, me and Riley we'll be back home in 30 minutes." Like, what the fuck? Some of those candy canes are creepy as shit, dude. But well, fingers crossed, nothing truly unpleasant is happening in your flat. I'm sure it's just your kid trying to deliver sweets to you, which is adorable, so it's fine. I've been Liam, he's been Rob, and you have been listening to the Hey You Guys podcast. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.
Oh, and before I forget, where can folk reach us if they were so inclined to?
Well, you can actually reach us on Hey You Guys 80s at Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter. But if you want to send us a mail, do heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Send us in your recommendations. Send us in your thoughts about any of the episodes. Just literally talk to us. We'll have a one-sided talk with you on the podcast.
Yeah. We're nice folk. Get in touch. But no, cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye now.